Hello and welcome to another evening of frank conversation here on Hard Copy. I'm Maokwe Yusuf. The headlines continue to remain heavy with stories that leave us worried about the state of our polity. On Monday, the police headquarters in Owerri, the Imo State capital, was burnt down alongside the correctional facility in the state when no less than 1,800 inmates were freed by the arsonists. Those who carried out the atrocity were not done because in another 48 hours, another police facility in the state was burned down. These attacks come on the heels of a number of onslaughts targeted at the nation's security men in the southeast and south of the country. At the last count, at least 60 of them are said to have lost their lives in the last 3 months. In the midst of all of this, there are a number of strike actions currently ongoing. That of the National Association of Resident Doctors, judicial workers who've grounded work at the nation's Supreme Court, and now some unions in the nation's education sector are also threatening to go on strike. The list goes on. What is to be done if Nigeria will come out of the numerous challenges bedeviling it? My guest tonight is Osita Chidoka, who is a former Minister of Aviation and now Special Advisor, Strategy and Engagement to the People's Democratic Party National Chairman. Osita Chidoka, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Well, it's been a while. We haven't seen you since Corona. Where were you hiding?
Well, like everybody, hunkering down. I'm waiting for this to pass.
Well, it has passed, and now we have another challenge on our hands. Security is at the forefront of almost every newspaper you read, and has been so for the last 3 months at the minimum. I'm wondering first and foremost how you take the news every time you see another story bordering on security.
First, I want to say that this conversation we're having today, I want to speak as a former senior government official. I will not take a partisan position. I'm not going to be speaking for the PDP or against the APC. I will speak as a responsible Nigerian. I will speak as somebody who has benefited from Nigeria, and getting to the Federal Executive Council of Nigeria is one of the rare privileges that many Nigerians may never be opportune to get to. So, and heading a paramilitary organization in Nigeria, I will speak as a Nigerian. I'll be frank, and I'll be, as much as possible, try to see whether we can find solutions. The blame game is over, but we need to find solutions. First is that the whole idea of insecurity in Nigeria has been going over the years. We all seem to have forgotten that for 11 years we've been at a war in the northeast of the country. And no country that is at a war will not gradually weaken its security forces, because you can't perpetually be on an asymmetrical war like the ones we have in the northeast, rotating soldiers around there. No police system is working in that area. The courts are not working in that area. If you notice, the first thing Boko Haram did in the northeast was to destroy the government infrastructure. They destroyed courts, they destroyed police stations, they went after security agents. Now the question you will ask yourself, what were the lessons learned from dealing with Boko Haram? When did it start happening? Did we have a situation where the anger of the people were boiling over before it even get to the point of the actual violence? What has the State Security Service learned about dealing with an area where there is anger? What have we learned about when we see the behavior that begins to show us that these people are non-state actors who want to cause maximum damage to the state? So if you look at that, you will be surprised to be amazed that the crisis happening again, from the headsmen to the farmer clash, from the southeast now against security, from the southwest, the headsmen fighting, the natives fighting the headsmen. You ask yourself, who has a playbook in the government? Who has an understanding of the experience we got from Borno, the experience we got from Jos, where we've always had ethnic crisis rearing itself? And how have we been doing what I call checking the thermometer of every zone, just to check how deep the feelings are?
We all are seeing, the crisis brewing from another part of the country. Yes, almost every part of the country seems to have its own unique challenge. Look at what happened in the northwest of the country, but from the southeast, where you hail from, we also see what is happening now with ESN. It was in the military arm of IPOB. And the challenges, the unique challenges that have been presented there as well. I'm wondering, as somebody from the southeast, how are those stories hitting you?
You see, that's the fundamental issue. So, as somebody from the southeast, it makes it look like the problem that we have in the northwest or in the northeast or in the how will I put it? They're not localized to those places. It's a challenge to the Nigerian state.
Indeed.
It is a challenge to the
But
Nigerian state.
Indeed,
So
however,
the question is
how people will receive them,
yes,
will certainly be different if they live there or if they're people, I don't know how to put it now. I'm trying to imagine that if my own place where I hail from, I mean,
Yes.
I feel pity and I feel a lot of, worry and concern when I hear stories in other parts of the country. But oftentimes people say that, when these things happen, when you see a corpse that is not yours or that is not belonging to the member of your family, but a log of wood, until it hits you. So I don't know if you're receiving this differently because you are from the southeast of the country.
No, I'm not. I'm receiving it because I see the danger. When the kidnappings started in the south of white men, I knew it was a matter of time before they started kidnapping Nigerians. I knew it was a matter of time before the southeast will learn how to do kidnap. Criminal elements will learn it. I knew it was a matter of time before the kidnapping will go up north. Today it's the headsmen that are doing the kidnapping, but don't forget where it started from. So Nigerians are not connecting the issue. It is not a southeast problem.
Not connecting the dots.
They're not connecting the dots. It is the challenge of the Nigerian state. And I'll tell you, when you look at a government, when I came in, I was telling you I was looking at some data. The state and the local government in Nigeria from 1999 to 2017 has received about 46 trillion. 46 trillion has gone to the state and the local government. The highest zone, the south-south, has received about 12 trillion because of the derivation formula. The next highest has been the northwest, about 8 trillion, 8.7 trillion. Now,
the northwest has more states than any other.
More states and more local governments. Yeah. So when you look at even the local government allocation, of this 8.7, about 4.2 was for local governments. Number, how do you have the highest number of out-of-school students in that zone? Why are the northern leaders not confronting the issue of the source of manpower for this misbehavior that we saw in the north? Why are we not saying everybody, okay, halt, let's have a 5-year plan. Bring these kids back to class. We don't care where the teachers will come from. We don't care. It's a national emergency. We need to get these out-of-school children out to reduce the number of people that are able to be recruited. Now, when you now have that issue in the northwest and you are paying the brigands and you are paying the kidnappers and the government is negotiating with them, you then have criminal elements in the south-south, in the southeast, looking for that opportunity. Beyond that, when you have a country where there has been no coherent effort, and I've been shouting, I've been saying, everybody should please tell Mr. President that Nigeria has made progress because of the consensus we built on certain issues like federal character. Now, when you negate that principle, what happens is that they forget that if you have all the security agents from one part of the country, the bulk of the people working on that are not all from the one part of the country, they're from the multi-ethnic group. And if they don't see that their career pathway will lead them to the top, that they will be consigned to ICT department and research department, they will not give you their best. So the foot soldiers that are fighting the war, Nigeria has limited its capacity to fight because the bulk of the officers in the police, in the army, who are from parts of the country that feel alienated in their appointments, are not going to give you their best. We are in a dilemma.
In other words,
a war situation.
We could be shooting ourselves in the foot.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot. You need to make everybody in that organization feel that I have an equal chance to get there. That's what Martin Luther King pointed out. He said one day that the color of my skin would not be the issue, but the content of the character of the child. So the moment everybody feels that you cannot be IG, you cannot be DGSSS, you cannot be DGNIA because you are not from a certain part of the country, how do you expect almost 40-50% of your staff strength who feel that they have no hope in the future to give you their best?
Um, you just said something now, and some people will ask, are you equating racism with ethnicism? I don't
Yes,
know.
yes, yes.
It's one
Any
and the same
discrimination
thing.
is diversity. Anytime that women are excluded all over the world, women have argued. Even the gays and the transgenders people are arguing that excluding them from governance, from the military, from the police is against their human rights, isn't it? So when the Americans came up with don't ask, don't tell policy was because they needed to reflect the diversity. So any exclusionary policy, whether it is of a racial character, of a religious nature, of an ethnic nature, is an exclusion. What you will get is that you will not be fighting with your full team. It's like having a football team where 5 members of the team are passing the ball backwards instead of forward.
Well, you have said that you don't intend to speak as a partisan member, but everything rises and falls at the foot of government.
Yes.
And of course the leadership at the end of the day. I'm wondering, we cannot have this conversation without talking about politics.
Yes.
And because a lot of the issues, rightly or wrongly, have been politicized. And where we ought to have been able to draw or find consensus, they have formed matters that have now, come up at elections and have decided whether or not a party remains in power or has been ousted. You were in government when a party was ousted, and you have also tried again, with another candidate to see if your party can regain power. Now we are approaching 2023. How do you think this conversation, especially now that you will see that we're getting to the point where you say we have to build consensus to be able to move forward? How do you think that this is going to be shaped, especially now that we see that the parties are beginning to have some life and activity around them ahead of the 2023 polls?
Well, the situation we are in today, if it continues, if the violence in the northwest, if the war in the northeast continues, if the violence in the southeast spreads and in the south-south, then elections will not even be possible. We need to. I think we're in a delicate situation.
Are political actors getting that message?
I don't know. That's why I'm saying it here.
But I'm asking you because you're a political actor.
I don't know, because the ruling coalition, the people in power today, seems to be totally oblivious of the need for this national consensus, and I don't know why. Maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe they have some information I don't have. And I give them that benefit of that they may know something. But today, I want to speak to the leaders of the country, the ethnic leaders of the country. I want the northern leaders to ask themselves, for a zone that have received 8.7 trillion, that is in the top echelon of the government, running the government, is this the best you can offer the country? That's what I want to ask my colleagues from the north. And I want to ask my colleagues from the south, which is in all of us from the south. Are we going to allow the country to go? Because people don't understand that when this country gets into a war situation or a descent to Syria, the time it took Syria to get to where it was far shorter than the time it took Syria to build the beautiful country that Syria was. So it's not going to be easy for everybody. My colleagues and brothers from the south, southwest, and southeast, are we saying that this is the best we can do for the country? Are we saying that this feeling of alienation, this sense of hopelessness that is occurring in various communities, the feeling of that this government doesn't care about them, we cannot allow it to get to the despondent point where people are going to take up arms like we're seeing now? Because what I'm seeing in the southeast, and I'm still looking to see what is going on, that they are attacking police stations, this is an attack at the authority of the Nigerian state. This is a destruction of the infrastructure of governance. So what will happen is that the people that started it may not even know what will happen afterwards. Criminal elements will take over. Local issues will take over. So at the end of the day, we are going to be the losers. Because once you destroy the infrastructure of governance, you can't replace it overnight with a warlord. Other warlords will emerge.
Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. And my guest tonight is Osita Chidoka, who is a former Minister of Aviation and now Special Advisor, Strategy and Engagement to the People's Democratic Party National Chairman. And we're talking about State of the Nation.
I'm telling everybody that where we need to be today is, yes, we have elections coming. Yes, we need to change the government, or we need to put in a new party and new government. Luckily, the president is ending his tenure in office by the term limit. But beyond that is need for a conversation. I don't know if the people feel it. People from the southeast and where I come from feel totally alienated. We express our choice in an election, we shouldn't be punished for it. People in the southwest are increasingly getting agitated. The poor in the northwest, the people in the northwest, the children out of school, the children that have been excluded, the people that have been excluded are angry, have turned into bandits. If you go to the north central, there is a rising clash between the Fulani headsmen and the farmers in the northwest. In the north central, the governor of Benue is shouting every day. He's screaming. Attempt at his life has happened. Now, if you go to the northwest, we're at a war. So how are we going to continue thinking that we will just get into an election, elect a new set of leaders, and be distributing the oil wealth? It's not going to happen. We need to recalibrate. We need to look at the long-term effect of the decisions we've taken in the past 10 years, in the past 15 years. I'm not limiting it to the current government. We need to have a conversation. And I'm not talking about going to call a national conference or this. The president needs to come down from wherever he is. If he's a high horse, he needs to get down from it. He needs to engage the leaders of all the various parts of the country. Listen to them and listen to the young people who are speaking in Nigeria. I don't think the situation we have today is a situation that we can just say, this will pass. It will not pass.
Well, the thoughts that you've expressed and the fears that you've expressed, shows that we're at a point of danger. Is that right? I was reading a few of your tweets before you came on the show, and you talked about, I think it was one you talked about when your father usually comes round to visit you. And you said that when he comes around to visit you, he usually gives you advice. And normally you would dismiss his advice as the effect of trauma, because your father saw the 1967 Civil War. You say you dismiss it as trauma untreated. Do you still think so?
Yes. If you look at some countries that have gone through certain dangers. I lived in Singapore at a time what I normally hear from older Singaporeans, and it's interesting, in 2002, when I was a student there, they used to preface their statement with words like, when we were a poor country, they could see a glorious future in front of them. They could see that the country has made progress. In fact, they had to retain a street with the old buildings in it and said, this place is a cultural center. Nobody would demolish the buildings. Just to remind our coming generations that this was how Singapore used to be. It hasn't always been glass and steel. This is what we used to be. This is the fish market. This is how we used to live. And the reason is that in one generation, in 30 years, people are talking about when we were a poor country. So if Nigeria had made progress, people would have been saying, you didn't see what we saw. If you know what we suffered. But looking at the future, people are looking at their children and saying, why are you still here? You're not going to Canada. You're not going to the US. This country, it's not looking good. Things are not looking good. People are not feeling that there is hope. So when I say trauma untreated, is that the country hasn't now moved away from the issues. In fact, if you go and get the headlines of 1967 and get the headlines of 2021, you're not likely to see much difference in the conversation. It's still about ethnicity. It's still about who is occupying what. But if we have made progress with our federal character principle. If we had made progress, now what we'll be discussing about is how are we going to get more competent people, to get into offices. So I think that when I say trauma untreated, is that the country hasn't had catharsis. The country hasn't reached out within itself to resolve the issues that fundamentally led it a war. That conversation is not yet happening.
I think what I meant to ask, do you take his advice more seriously now, or do you still dismiss it?
No, his advice are quite germane. Because how am I going to get into the, if you can't go into the Southeast with a policeman. So his advice is even getting more prescient if you look at the events happening today.
Would you agree if people say that our parties have been largely irresponsible in terms of how they've managed the country, and that's why we found ourselves where we are?
Well, it would be a blanket statement to make, but not far from the truth, in that the electoral process made it possible for people to retreat to ethnic posturing to be able to get power. Especially if you look at the politicians coming from large political base, like the North, rallying the North around you, gives you an advantage. So you can come and negotiate with any part of the South to get votes. So the tendency is that, and we try to correct that by saying you need to win 1/4 of the vote cast in 24 states to be able to be elected president. The idea being that you will appeal to people across a broad section of the country. But because you have 19 states up north, so if you can gather that, you'll only be negotiating for 5 from the south. So that kind of created a perverse incentive for people to play certain kinds of politics. But what we are seeing today is that it has not paid anybody. Nobody has benefited from it. He's even winning the power. Nobody has benefited from it. It's interesting. Somebody just sent me a snapshot that, 24 governors are on trial for corruption. 18 are from the north and 6 are from the south. This was as at 2017. The data is as at 2017. So, and if you look at that, you will have thought that in an area, in money, and this is across political parties. So it's not that it was PDP that did it or APC that caused it. This is across political parties. So I think that most of the sociocultural groups talks about the 1999 Constitution as the problem. I personally don't agree to that demonization of the 1999 Constitution. There's a whole lot of things we need to change in the 1999 Constitution, and I agree with that. But I don't agree with that demonization, because 1999 Constitution was reflective of the experiences and the constitutional progress we've made from 63. It was basically the 1979 Constitution that, we kept tweaking. Why am I saying that? It's because for the structuralists who say nothing else should be done until we restructure the country, I am saying, while we are waiting for restructuring, the people born in 1999 are now 21 years old. So if they haven't gotten good education, they've been wasted for their life. If there's no water running in their estate where you live, or in the house where you live, there's no water. You've lived for 21 years now without running water. We've lived for 21 years now without power. Some will say it is because of the structure. I said, yes, it probably is. But which part of the structure makes it that government cannot be transparent, that government cannot deliver value to the people? Which is why I'm in particular love with the Chapter 2 of our Constitution, which calls its fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy. It says this is the purpose of government, the security of the people. This is the things we should do. It says we should give them free education, but says it is not justiciable. You can't go to court to enforce this right. But what am I saying? The political elites of Nigeria should not wait for a court order to enforce those things. I believe that the money that is shared from the federal allocation should be tied to delivering the benefits that are accrued to Nigerians in the Chapter 2 of our Constitution.
Sorry, is this from your background now as a lawyer?
Not quite. This is from my time in government and looking at the purpose of government. Why are we doing what we're doing? Okay. So when I look at the Chapter 2 of the Constitution every time and see all the lofty things he says should be done for Nigerians. He even talks about it. That's where we talked about our national motto, unity and progress, people to pay taxes. But what I found interesting is that it doesn't require Nigerians going to court to enforce it. I think as part of our national consensus, the money that we're making from oil today, that we're distributing to the country, we should tie it to being able to deliver those things for government. Because at the root of all of this is poverty, is exclusion, is the feeling of alienation. That is the root of all this insecurity in Nigeria.
Well, that's the program tonight, but we'd love to hear from you. So leave us a comment using the handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Yusuf. Good night.